Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Marshall here, and I'm bringing you a 1 versus 1 cast between Nimzo Dragonlord and Son of a Broom, or Broom Sun Tzu in this instance. Broom as quoted by Sun Tzu. Broom playing in Gunmetal Grey on the north spawn of the map called Plenty. Going into bots, into double air bots, third air, then into vehicles. Meanwhile, on the south spawn though, we have Nimzo in his customary orange vehicles air bots, and is yet thereafter undecided. That's going to be interesting because the vehicles are quite slow. They can take a bit more of a beating when it comes to raiding though, Faber raiding. And Broom is going to get an earlier access to air. This seems to have been a little bit quicker off the mark and getting the air factory up. So if you wanted to get some drops going, you would have the advantage in doing so. Nimzo, however, failing a little bit on that, and Broom not necessarily going for it, as is apparent. And these Fabers here forming a train of 3. Going off towards the back to the triple expansion rather than to the double to the quad. Possibly because this is a more defensible area. Possibly because it leads on to other expansions. Less open, less direct from the enemy's base. And so therefore is possibly why the spawn is preferred. Both players getting scouts out as you would expect of high levels. And Nimzo playing very slow and passive with his fabs there, though now splitting them out into other ways, going forward, whoops, to start establishing his forward base there. Liking the look of that. While though Broom electing to proxy by the big crater on the reverse. Instead, Nimzo, however, is proxying with double vehicle factories, so this is going to be a constant irritation for Broom going forward if he gets both of these factories up. That's going to give him a lot of command over this whole area and start threatening the front door of Broom's base as well. However, of course, both players, I would imagine, just sort of getting their ducks in a row rather than necessarily going and raiding each other's hearts out at this particular point. Both players going to get those proxies set up nicely. Broom, though, not yet. There we go. Broom going for some heavy docks and striker plays so far. Much more maneuverable and fast units, but also paper thin. They don't really stand much of a beating. As a result, they're very cheap. And on large planets like this is often quite favoured by the upper players because it just gives you that presence everywhere on the map much quicker. And combining that with air scouting and air play, you have the ability to project presence across a map very, very quickly. Which is why you don't tend to see things like big clumps of, I don't know, drifters or sparks wandering all over the place. As these units are the dispensable ones, they're the ones that are going to go in, maybe get a metal or two, kill off a fab, and no one's really going to miss them, let's put it that way. But Nimzo doing some pretty good stuff here, shoring up all of his expansions with factories. We've got a vehicle factory there, Commander going up for the third factory for the air in the not too distant, and even getting out some air fabs now as well. We've got to make sure that those aren't seen by these drifters that have just been split up there. First little engagements here. Strikers do beat docks in small numbers. Sneeze incoming! Excuse me. I did warn you. Right. Meanwhile, on the front here, this is where Nimzo is going for his slower, harder hitting units. As described. We've got the sparks coming out for the bots, and we've got the drifters coming out for the vehicles. A little bit of anti-air support there, but not a huge amount in terms of those two stingers. We'll probably want a spinner or two out of there just to ensure anti-air, and we've already got one look supporting the back. And some Galata as well. Really well placed expansions here from Nimzo, and expanding with the Galata, knowing that he has good land support. So he's not bothering with point defense at this particular location. Broom trying to find a chink in the armor, knocking in different locations. They're getting that air fab down into these craters here. Broom though expanding on the rear, getting a radar up there. Nice big coverage of this area. Nimzo won't be able to creep in on this without being seen. No tier 2 yet really from either of these players. Air clumps are forming for both of them. Broom favouring a few more bombers, as far as I can see. Radar didn't manage to get up, but the expansion does. There's a bit of good micro there on those bumblebees. On that first one, just getting them really slow, stopping them over the buildings so that they can drop their whole payload, and in comes Nimzo's air, sweeping up the bumblebees. Loses a few hummingbirds for it, keeps one metal extractor alive as a result, and also, crucially, that drove Broom's air away, so he won't have seen this coming in. Let's have a look. Did he see that coming in? No. So he doesn't know that Nimzo is now trying to shore up that expansion, although he'll find out now. There you go. So he can see that that expansion is a thing. He doesn't have any bumblebees to deal with it, however. So what he is doing is he's factory creeping. Factory creeping on this other side is going to put Nimzo a little bit of a irritation. The fighting is starting to happen on the front here. Broom forced to respond to Nimzo's forward factories. With several of his own, we've got 4 here, look, 4 vehicle factories, which is being supported by a steady supply of sparks. Some of whom are just going to be like, you know what, I'm not going to bother fighting that. I'm going to knock on the front door and see what I can do. And that is a very good move if you look at it. Sorry about the colours, but what can you do? The 2 coming up from Nimzo now. Nothing yet from Broom on that front. There still remains. Raiding encroaching from the bit behind now. Getting a little bombing raid off. Zozair is out of position, so it's, you know, free takings. A little bit too close to the spinner though. The bumblebees continue, managing to get off a couple of fabs. Nimzo micros them out the way. Just keeping Nimzo on his toes here as Broom. 1 fab remains, 2 in fact. More spinners coming out, supporting the party. Got to form everything back up, keep these bumblebees away. The more spinners that there are, there you go. Broom sees them and is like, nope, I'm not having that. And disappears. Here we go though. On the front door now is Broom coming in, ready to raid that T2. The commander is on the other side of the P-gens. Not really where he wants to be. He wants to be out the front of them, I would reckon. But especially now that he knows that this is only a T1 army. And come the bumblebees there. He's desperately trying to soften these guys up before they get too far in, and that will be done successfully. Good work there on the defense from Nimzo, only losing a single mechs, as good players normally do. They'll probably reassign someone. There you go, instantly reassigned to go and expand to all of that. Not wasting a moment's time. Belter's here, a bit too close to comfort. Struggling. There's the air to support. The bumblebees out of position, get caught completely. And there goes Broom's air. It's all gone. All of Broom's air is gone. He's been reset. His air fabs, though, still survive. All 6 of them. Blimey. No T2 for him just yet, though. Teleporters coming up from Nimzo on the other side of the planet there. Keep Broom guessing. Teleporters like that can really throw an opponent off if you can instantly move a big army around into a soft underbelly. It works. Here we go. A bit of a Broom push here. That will get into this crater. Nimzo's just going to YOLO straight past. forcing Broom to retreat. He's got a couple of pelters here to defend. Nimzo going to walk straight into those. Now sitting inside the craters. Doesn't want to push out of there into a big army. It's strange, the lower ground actually has a little bit of an advantage as far as the lips are concerned. The moment you go over the lip, the attacking party has the disadvantage. Whether it's over a lip to go up, or over a lip to go down. And look at this, both players here doing really good at just expanding, regardless as to where the attacks are. They're just like, you know what, I've got fabbers elsewhere, I'm just going to expand and just go for it. Like, even if it's over the halfway mark, just send the fabs. If you get them there and are lucky, then get some defense going. Why not? Just do it. And looking at the ecos, it's really working out for them. Broom especially now up to 350. His army's lacking a little bit, but his eco is definitely outshining that. Could possibly build a couple more factories off the back of that. Especially considering his energy is floating. That will just improve his recon. He's got a good radar coverage though. If I ping up all of his radars. There you go. You can see Broom's radar coverage. Quite impressive. Half of the planet there sees into Nimzo's base. Of course, we've got a Vanguard there, which is radar stealth. So you'll see Nimzo's stuff disappear. There it goes. Oop. Kind of struggling a bit. Now that he's running out of power. The moment that Vanguard came out, oh, and there's the teleporter use. That's what it's for, a surprise T2 assault from the other side, but you haven't got a teleporter anymore, you've still got a combat... maybe not. Meanwhile though, big fight on the front there. Broom can definitely push this. He's got the numbers, but the teleporter is there. Nimzo doesn't have the power to link it. Although, he's just cancelled his factories and outpours the T2. Levelers and a Vanguard. And all of a sudden, Broom thinks, uh-oh. Teleporter's down, though. Nimzo managing to miraculously bring his power into the green there. It was red for quite some time. But needs must, and this is needs must right here. Broom doing some really aggressive factory placements. 7 vehicle factories, and that's just going to constantly harass Nimzo's front door now. Whether it be with weak nonsense like strikers, or whether it be with slightly more substantial meals like drifters, it's just going to be a nuisance. This, though, is going to be a little bit of a problem. Broom's got to get round it, and look at that, he's got a nice old way of getting round it. A couple of spinners coming in, though. Going to dissuade those bombers from doing too much else, but this party here is the trouble for Broom. He's not yet got his T2 finished. That's what he wants to focus on doing right now. That drifter... not drifter, sorry. Vanguard. If he didn't have vision... that Vanguard... look at that! No coverage of the radar stuff in the middle of that. More Vanguards, though, would add to that. But it just means that pelters are less effective when you don't have vision, and that's exactly what this is going to do. It's going to go and not only clear up the metal extractors, but also clear up the vision in the middle, which is going to give them relatively free movement. Again, he'll see a few dots, but not as many. And there are the air fabs. Or there they are not, shall we say. Nimzo's there, though, coming in to support his army. Having a look over here, sees not a lot of stuff, sees a few mechs. Go and bomb those in one passes each. He's finishing them up, gets a little bit of scouting out over the front of the base there. Bumblebee's going in to soften up the parade. Setting the mattress heater on a little bit, warming the place up for Nimzo when he arrives. the air there. Also putting the kettle on, anticipating Nimzo knocking. And here he comes. These shellers here are going to be crucial to this defense, though. They're on the other side of the factories, so they're nice and safe from the attack. But these smaller units here, apart from the grenadiers perhaps, aren't really going to be able to do a huge amount. There's just too much heavy T1 and T2 there. Those shellers are just going to constantly be softening up from a distance. The receptionist was like, "I'm sorry, you don't have a reservation," but Nimzo goes, "I don't need a reservation," and decides to walk up the stairs anyway, before being intercepted by the security and swiftly thrown out. Not after throwing a few portraits off on the floor. Which is what Broom now has to clear up. He has to clear up all that mess, re-establish a bit of power. Gone down into the red there a little bit. That's not going to take too much, he's only about 1k under. Fix that situation. He's already doing it on this side, look. Get a couple more factories. That shouldn't be too much of a problem. These forward factories are very... They're paying for themselves, and they're keeping Nimzo back in his base defending now. Nimzo only has small clumps of units out on the battlefield because he just has to defend that front line. It's a bit of a lull, though, as a result of that. Bit of a lull in proceedings. Armies are even. Baba's 45 to Broom. Have you ever seen so many fabricators? And 25 factories as well. For a map this size and with that much metal? Yeah, that's about right. 287 though, 300 for Nimzo now. Of course, he can start reclaiming all that wreckage in his base, as can Broom, to add that extra little bit. But this here is going to be a problem. That is a big force. This is a sizable defense, but the grenadiers can kite, as can the shellers. Is Nimzo going to engage, or is he just going to wander around and try and get the factories? I wonder whether he just hasn't had the bandwidth to micro that army a little bit. Which has resulted in a very good trade for Broom. Where could Nimzo possibly be putting his attention right now? There's a little bit to raiding everywhere, I would assume. He's got another teleporter up there. The two. Just sort of teleporter creeping. If you can make the yards, take the yards, then go for it. It's like a football game. Or rugby. Take the space. Form your defensive lines. And don't treat it like a hotel analogy, because only fools would do that. And there comes Nimzo. Being a nuisance. Broom, though, ready for a big fight. Nimzo's commander. A little bit out of position there. To get into the security of his base, doesn't want to necessarily be caught out with sheller fire on the horizon. Bumblebees, though, and there's only one spinner! There's only one spinner! That army is going to disappear! Unless the spinner stays alive. Nimzo, what are you doing? Micro your ass, sir! But there we go. That evened the playing field a bit. Reduced the range somewhat. To defend that quite nicely. I'm not getting close to Broom's base, though. Nimzo's eco's still in the lead as far as metal is concerned, as is the army, although a lot of that is now air. Air which Broom seems not to be rebuilding, so hummingbirds are relatively useless. Of course, once Nimzo cottons onto that, he'll just build Bumblebee, Bumblebee, Bumblebee. I think that's what he's doing now. Look at all of these factories he's going to produce. I reckon those will be bumblebees. Once he realises that Broom's air power is just not there, he's just going to cycle to bumblebees. At least that is what he should do. Certainly getting a good number from these. Broom here starting to struggle to keep up, I think. Hasn't replenished his factories that were killed off. And Nimzo forcing his T1 to just be in too many places at once, I feel. Possibly fielding too many strikers still, perhaps, is Broom. The mines. Possibly too many strikers and not enough drifters now. Definitely what he needs. We're getting T2 mechs now in his base. He's caught up on the metal as a result of that. Is it going to be too little too late, though? He needs the army count. As Nimzo encroaches, what's Nimzo's air doing? Is it doing bumblebees? Not yet. He is building them, but not to the extent that he could be. Careful Broom's little assault on that side, though. But Nimzo once again comes knocking. He's like, okay, you didn't let me in last season. How about now? And Broom goes, no thanks. You were rowdy, I remember. You messed up my portraits. Have at ye. You portrait poltergeist. Whatever that is. Here he comes. Look at these strikers doing very little. Barely getting into range before they're getting pipped away. That being said, they are good cannon fodder. Allows the levelers to do a little bit more work than they perhaps otherwise would do. The grenadiers, though, levelers, grenadiers, and shellers are where it's at. Really good trade there from sat inside that crater. Made it difficult for Nimzo to shoot in. Some good trades, and still they fight. Broom's bumblebees flying past. Find some fabs. Wants them gone. Also wants that teleporter gone, but I reckon that fab is probably more of an important target. There we go. More fabs. Just regular bumblebee raiding, as you do. Absolute carnage here. Nimzo comes in with the reinforcements. Lots of grenadiers. It's interesting, we've almost had a switch back to T1, certainly on that side of the house. T2, though, over in the middle. Look at this Broom! Building bot factories the other side of Nimzo's front drive. Unbelievable. Nimzo gonna come out and be like, no, 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 no. That hedge is spoiling my light. You didn't request powering permission for that. And down they go. Without really getting too much cost effectiveness. Cost effectivity, but the air from Nimzo is massive, and yet he's still not building bumblebees! Nimzo! Bombers! Broom putting up a sterling defense, though, and he's actually got greater economy now than Nimzo because of the T2 he's getting in his base. Can he push out and knock Nimzo back a little bit? Nimzo really shoring up around the equator here. Nimzo cleaning up Broom's overextension with those factories. They went unpunished for too long. The thing is, by Broom not really going into the air game anymore, that forces him to build spinners out of his vehicle factories. Which means that he's going to have fewer things like strikers and drifters. Which means that he's going to have fewer direct fire units. Because he's going to be constantly worrying about the threat of a complete air wipeout. Nimzo's really not capitalizing on. What can Nimzo see? Let's have a look. He sees 2 air factories. He knows that he killed one earlier. And he hasn't engaged with air in a long time. Nimzo will be watching this, probably thinking, Marshall, I deliberately didn't build bombers in because X. And to that I say, you're wrong! I'm Marshall Hindsight. I can say with impunity what you should have done. And strangely, spamming up air fabbers and going orbital is not what I had in mind. But if it works, Broom's still not going for air factories, instead just constantly into the ground there. Nimzo slowly encroaching. Will he build another teleporter on this side? The problem that Broom has now is that Nimzo has these tier 2 leveled raiding parties. And sort of small clumps of tier 1 stuff isn't sufficient any longer. And as a result, he's going to have to have more emphasis on defense. And more units lingering around the base, rather than pushing out and doing stuff. Which, if you've watched my other recent casts, you'll know having armies out and doing things is much better than having them sat in your base. I like that. And you should too. Like what, you ask? This video! Please? He asked you nicely. Don't forget to leave any comments or feedback. What you learnt, didn't learn. What you thought of the hotel analogy. What you think of Nimzo's belligerent hummingbirds. There you go, bumblebees! Bumblebee City! I'll scream that from the hilltops. Share it with everyone. Yes, that was a subliminal message. There we go. Bumblebee's Nimzo. He heard me. Hindsight foresight. Is that a thing? I don't know, but he's starting to get a really worrisome number of bumblebees there. Let's count that. 44. We're encroaching on one pass territory. Gonna look around and see where things are. He sees a commander. Doesn't think he has enough yet. I certainly don't, and he's not going for it. Just taking out factories and fabbers and defense. Allowing his armies to come in. And surely Broom now realizes that it's over. 70 units behind. And I'm not going to worry about the air discrepancy now because those bumblebees have power now. Nimzo can go over and defend at a moment's notice. He can finish off metal extractor expansions at the drop of a hat. And Broom is left with an all or nothing. Here it comes. It's got a lot of spinners, but the army's over here. The army's moved out without the spinners. Could this be a costly mistake? But Nimzo can see everything anyway, so it's not a problem. Could this army moving out without the spinners be a costly mistake? Can they get there in time? There's a few coming up, but I think Nimzo probably is so far ahead that he would happily sacrifice these bumblebees to finish this off. Here we go. Yeah, just ride over. He's lost his bumblebees, but he'll replenish them quickly enough, and now that's been thinned down. Stop building hummingbirds, Nimzo! I thought you'd learned your lesson. Apparently not. Sort it out, mate. Come on. It's not rocket science. Here we go with the orbital radars. Sees exactly what's up. As a result, can use his ranged units from Blue Hawks to shellers. Has he got any sniper bots there? He does on this side. Get him a little too close for comfort, though. Boing! Down they go. I'm struggling to see a way of Broom to come back here. The all or nothing left without the spinners. And is now nothing. Nimzo has yet to really break in. Broom can hold on, but he's struggling now. He really is struggling, and he's falling behind on the economy game as Nimzo's T2 mechs start to build. God, look at that number of spinners. This is the thing, right? Nimzo no longer has a huge number of bumblebees, but Broom is still building spinners because he's paranoid. And because he has to, just in case Nimzo decides, you know what, I'm going to switch back to bumblebees. And as a result, if we look at that, there's not a lot of actual attacking units there. 112 spinners, only 28 grenadiers, 2 levelers. And there's 8 sniper bots, which isn't too bad. Nothing to be sniffed at there, but it's not going to break a base. Certainly not a base with defense. If the base didn't have defense, then sure, maybe. Here we go. Nimzo's there. The Spectre's going to see those Hermes, rather. The Spectre is the Legion variation. See those and think better of it. Think better of suicidal behaviour. Broom having to respond to the orbital. Here we go. Slowly and surely. But not necessarily inevitably. There's a bit of a contradiction, but there we go. Vanguard's levelers on the back. The back factory line, and those are the drifters. The drifter makers. Commander's not too far away, he's a bit safe there though. Not in any direct trouble. Any imminent danger. This here could be deciding. All those spinners having to run. And that's a GG. Broom has given up the ghost. After all of that, it was a gradual slide to defeat Nimzo's army. 530. 48 fabricators, 37 factories, and 600 metal. Plus. That's one way to go about it. Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed this game. Thank you very much for stopping by and watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and all of that jazz. Please share with your friends. And also, by the way, I'm doing, hoping to try and get some more time to do Let's Plays on my Twitch. I've started dancing again, so my Twitch schedule is much reduced currently. But I'll see what I can do. And also, Age of Empires 4 is coming out soon. Stick around for casts of that. Until next time, though, I've been the Marshal. Thank you very, very much for watching. And as always, have a good one.